The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 3 artificial suns. 500,000 years ago, on this very day, humanity faced its darkest hour. The memory crystals still held the recording of that fateful session, though few dared to watch it anymore. In the recording, Earth's ambassador Tom Reed stood proud and tall before the Council's massive semicircle of seats. His voice echoed through the chamber as he presented humanity's case for full membership in the galactic community. Behind him, holographic displays showed Earth's rapid progress, their first faster-than-light drive, their successful colonies on Mars and Europa, their breakthrough in clean energy production. Earth seeks only peaceful cooperation, Reed said, his gray hair catching the light. We offer our innovations freely to benefit all species. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The head counselor, a tall being with silvery skin, leaned forward. Your species has achieved in 2 centuries what took others 2 millennia. This rate of advancement is concerning. Reed smiled, not understanding the danger in that moment. We are quick learners, yes, but we come as friends, as equals. The council called for a recess. In their private chamber, the true discussion began. The recording, secretly preserved by a junior aide who would later flee in shame, captured it all. They're too dangerous, the head counselor hissed. Did you see their innovation curve? In another century, they'll surpass us all. Another council member, their scales shifting colors with anxiety, spoke up. Their minds work differently. They solve problems in ways we never considered. If we let them join us, they'll dominate within a generation. The vote was quick and unanimous. Humanity would be quarantined for the greater good of galactic stability. They told Reed it was a temporary measure, just until proper protocols could be established. They promised it would be humane. They lied. As Reed's ship departed, carrying the bitter news back to Earth, the Council enacted their true plan. Deep in space, a massive engineering project was already underway. They weren't building a quarantine field. They were constructing a pulsar beam redirector, a weapon that would sterilize Earth's surface while making it look like a natural disaster. But humanity wasn't completely unprepared. Deep in bunkers beneath the surface, quantum probability computers had been running scenarios. They had calculated a small but real chance of betrayal. When the pulsar's deadly beam approached Earth, emergency protocols activated instantly. The recording showed the final moments. Reed, now aboard humanity's prototype long-range ship, watched in horror as the blue marble of Earth turned orange, then red, then began to crack. Billions died in seconds, but thanks to the quantum bunkers and experimental tunneling technology, millions escaped through hastily created wormholes. As their emergency fleet jumped to safety, Reed made a declaration that would echo through centuries. Remember this day. Remember what they did. Humanity will survive. Humanity will grow. And humanity will return. Not for blind vengeance, but for justice. This I swear on the ashes of Earth. The recording ended there, but the story didn't. The survivors fled far, crossing the vast void between galaxies. They found refuge in Andromeda, where no council influence reached. There, among the strange stars of a new galaxy, they began to rebuild. They didn't just survive. They thrived. Each generation grew stronger, smarter, more advanced. They preserved the memory of Earth, not as a burden of sorrow, but as a burning flame of purpose. They built their new civilization not on hatred, but on the determination that such a betrayal would never happen again, to any species. 500,000 years passed. The Council forgot about Earth, treating it as just another restricted zone with a forgotten purpose. They grew comfortable in their power, corrupt in their authority. They never imagined that humanity had survived, never dreamed that the children of Earth would remember, never considered that they would return. They should have. Commander Mark Stone stood at the observation deck of the Terran Dawn, watching the massive fleet preparation through the crystalline viewport. Each ship in the fleet was a masterpiece of engineering, their dark hulls absorbing nearby light rather than reflecting it. They were practically invisible against the backdrop of space, a technology that had taken centuries to perfect. 500,000 years of evolution and advancement had changed humanity. Stone, like all modern humans, stood 7 feet tall. His enhanced muscles didn't bulge like those of ancient bodybuilders, but lay flat and dense under his skin. His brain could process information 3 times faster than his ancestors, yet he felt a deep connection to them, especially now. "Fleet status report," he said quietly. The ship's AI responded by projecting a hologram in the air before him. Green lights sparkled across the display. All 10,000 ships were ready. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a continent, yet their greatest weapon was their stealth technology. Behind him, the bridge doors slid open without a sound. Admiral James Walker entered, his white uniform gleaming under the starlight. Like all high-ranking officers, he carried the memory crystal, a direct recording of the Council's betrayal, in a sleeve pocket over his heart. "It's time," Walker said, his voice steady. "The final calculations are complete. The fleet can reach the Milky Way in 6 months using the new fold drive." Stone turned from the viewport. "After all these years," he said, "we're finally going home." The Admiral nodded, walking to stand beside Stone. Together, they looked out at the fleet. "Our ancestors would barely recognize us now," Walker mused. "We've changed so much. Stronger, faster, smarter. But do you know what remained exactly the same?" "Our humanity," Stone answered. They'd all learned this in school, how the survivors had made sure their advancement never came at the cost of their compassion, their creativity, their essential human nature. The Terran Dominion had grown beyond anything the Council could have imagined. Their new homeworld, New Terra, was just one of 500 fully developed planets. Their population had reached 30 billion, all united under one banner, one purpose: the return. "Show me the Earth simulation again," Stone requested. Another hologram appeared, this one showing their ancient homeworld as it currently existed. The once blue planet was now gray and brown, its surface still scarred from the pulsar beam. Stone had studied every detail of this simulation, just as he'd studied every detail of what Earth had looked like before. "The terraforming fleet is ready," Walker said. "Once we've dealt with the Council, they'll begin restoration immediately. Earth will be blue again." Their civilization had developed technologies that would seem like magic to their ancestors. They could reshape planets, harness the energy of entire stars, and bend space itself to their will. Yet they had developed something even more powerful: patience. "Send the order," Walker commanded. "All ships begin launch sequence." Across the vast fleet, engines came to life. They made no sound in the vacuum of space, but Stone could feel the vibration through the deck. The ships moved with perfect coordination, their formations so precise they seemed to dance among the stars. Stone touched the memory crystal in his own pocket. Every human carried one now, a constant reminder of both what they'd lost and what they'd become. They weren't seeking blind revenge. They had grown beyond that. They were returning to establish justice, to prevent such betrayals from ever happening again. The fleet entered formation around the Terran dawn. On 10,000 ships, crews took their positions. They were the descendants of those who had escaped, the children of survivors, the inheritors of humanity's legacy. They carried with them not just advanced weapons and technology, but 500 millennia of preparation and purpose. As the fold drive engaged, Stone watched the familiar stars of Andromeda begin to blur. They were going home, not as refugees fleeing destruction, but as guardians of justice. The Council had forgotten Earth, forgotten humanity. They would soon remember. Intelligence Officer Anna Wells moved through the crowded streets of the Council's capital world like a ghost. Her advanced stealth suit bent light around her, making her invisible to both eyes and sensors. 500 years of technological advancement had its advantages. The Council Tower rose before her, its spiral form stretching into the clouds. Once, this sight had inspired awe in humanity's representatives. Now, it just made Wells smile. Their arrogance was written in its very architecture. They thought themselves untouchable. She paused at a public viewing terminal, her suit's systems easily breaking through the laughably outdated security. Data flowed into her neural interface: trade reports, defense protocols, political messages. The Council had grown fat and lazy in humanity's absence. "Central, are you seeing this?" she subvocalized. Her words traveled instantly across impossible distances, through quantum channels the Council couldn't even detect, let alone intercept. "Confirmed," Commander Stone's voice replied in her mind. "Their technology has barely advanced since the betrayal. They've stagnated." Wells watched a group of Council representatives hurry past her. They argued loudly about trade tariffs and border disputes, like children squabbling over toys. None of them had any idea that humanity's fleet waited at the edge of their space, invisible and patient. She made her way to the restricted archives, where records of Earth's quarantine were kept. The security here was slightly better. It took her systems almost 3 seconds to bypass it. Inside, dust covered everything. No one had accessed these files in centuries. "You should see their current map of Earth's sector," she reported. "They've marked it as a natural disaster zone. They've even forgotten their own crime." The data she gathered painted a clear picture. The Council had grown corrupt and complacent. Their once mighty military now existed mainly for parades. Their unified government had devolved into a mess of competing interests and petty politics. Meanwhile, their advanced sensors hadn't detected humanity's arrival. 10,000 ships had entered their space, and they hadn't noticed a thing. The Council's much-vaunted defense network was blind to technology that operated on principles they had never imagined. Wells made her way to the tower's central garden, a place where representatives often gathered to discuss politics. She activated her suit's audio sensors, listening to their conversations. They spoke of luxury goods, of political appointments, of vacation homes on pleasure planets. None spoke of duty, of responsibility, of the greater good they were supposed to serve. "Final scan complete," she reported. "Their defense grid runs on predictable patterns. We can shut it down without them, even knowing it's gone." She paused at a historical display, showing the Council's greatest achievements. Earth wasn't mentioned. 500,000 dead worlds reduced to a forgotten footnote. A group of young Council representatives passed by, laughing about some political joke. Wells studied their faces. These weren't the ones who had betrayed Earth. They were the descendants of those criminals, living off the prosperity that betrayal had protected. "They have no idea we're coming," Stone replied. "The question is, should we announce ourselves first, or let them experience the same fear our ancestors felt?" Wells watched an automated cleaning drone bumble past her. Like everything else here, it was built on old technology, following old patterns. The Council had stopped innovating, stopped growing. They had chosen stagnation over progress, comfort over advancement. "No," she said finally, "we're not them. When we strike, they'll know exactly who we are and why we've come. Fear isn't our goal, justice is." She made her way back through the streets, past the oblivious citizens and the complacent officials. In orbit above, humanity's fleet waited in perfect silence. The Council had forgotten Earth, forgotten their crime, forgotten that actions have consequences. Soon, they would remember. But first, humanity would show them just how far they had fallen behind. The Council's arrogance had blinded them to their own weakness. Their comfort had made them vulnerable. The hunt was over. Now, the real work would begin. The Council's primary shipyards hung in space like a giant metal spider web, home to thousands of vessels and millions of workers. Commander Stone watched it through the Terran Dawn's quantum viewport, his expression calm. In 15 minutes, it would all change. "Status report," he ordered quietly. "All teams in position." His tactical officer replied. "Defense network access codes confirmed." Wells did good work. Around the shipyards, automated defense platforms stood guard, their weapons ready to destroy any unauthorized visitors. They were about to learn how useless they were against humanity's technology. Begin operation reminder. Stone commanded. Phase 1. Across 50 different systems, quantum signals traveled instantly through subspace. The Council's defense network didn't even notice as new code slipped into its systems. In the space of a heartbeat, 5 centuries of passwords, security protocols, and defensive measures simply stopped working. The shipyard's command center noticed nothing at first. Their screens still showed green status lights. Their sensors still reported all clear. The first sign that something was wrong came when their communication systems went silent. "What's happening?" the shipyard commander demanded, his scales changing color with worry. "Why can't we contact the defense platforms?" Before anyone could answer, the platforms themselves began to power down. One by one, their lights went dark. The shipyard was defenseless, but they didn't know against what. Phase 2, Stone ordered. The Terran Dawn and its escort ships dropped their stealth fields. To the Council's primitive sensors, it must have looked like the ships appeared from nowhere. 5 massive warships, each larger than anything the Council had built in centuries, now surrounded the shipyard. Panic erupted in the command center. Intruder alert. Unknown vessels detected. Launch the defense fleet. But the defense fleet couldn't launch. Every ship in the shipyard found its power systems mysteriously offline. Emergency systems failed to respond. Backup generators remained silent. "This is Commander Stone of the Terran Dawn." His voice echoed through every speaker in the shipyard. "We have disabled your facilities. Do not attempt to resist. Evacuation pods are still operational. You have 10 minutes to abandon the shipyard." The Council workers didn't need to be told twice. Evacuation pods began launching immediately, streaming away from the shipyard like seeds from a dandelion. Stone watched the exodus carefully, making sure every civilian had a chance to escape. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Council reinforcements are attempting to respond. 3 battle groups are trying to jump into the system." Stone allowed himself a small smile. "Are the quantum nets in place?" "Yes, sir. They won't be able to enter the system." The Council ships would find their jump drives refusing to engage, their navigation systems showing error messages they couldn't understand. Humanity had learned how to control space itself. No ship moved without their permission now. When the last evacuation pod cleared the area, Stone gave his next order. Begin Phase 3. Beams of concentrated energy, operating on principles the Council had never discovered, lanced out from the human ships. They didn't explode or destroy. They simply caused all atomic bonds to cease functioning. The mighty shipyard began to dissolve, its metal structure falling apart at the molecular level. In the nearby Council worlds, panic spread as news of the attack reached them. Their greatest shipyard, home to 1/3 of their military production, had been destroyed without a shot being fired. The attackers had appeared from nowhere, disabled everything, and vanished again. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're picking up Council transmissions. They're blaming each other. Each race thinks another Council member must be responsible." Stone nodded. This was exactly as planned. Let them fight among themselves for now. Let them taste confusion and fear. The real revelation would come soon enough. "All ships reactivate stealth systems," he ordered. "We have 6 more targets today." The human ships vanished again, leaving behind a cloud of dissolving metal and a lot of very frightened Council members. Humanity's return had begun, and this was only the first step. In the darkness of space, 10,000 more human ships waited, each with its own target. The Council was about to learn just how far behind they had fallen. The Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 100 worlds shouted across the Grand Hall, their voices echoing off the crystal walls. 7 major shipyards had been destroyed in a single day, along with dozens of military bases. Yet no one could agree on who was responsible. The head counselor, an ancient being named Vor, banged his ceremonial staff against the floor. "Order. We must have order." In that moment, every light in the chamber went dark. The emergency systems failed to activate. Even the artificial suns outside dimmed to darkness. A new hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, larger than any they had seen before. It showed a familiar scene, this very chamber, from 500,000 years ago. The council members fell silent as they watched their ancestors vote to destroy Earth. "We remember," a voice echoed through the chamber. The massive doors slid open, and Admiral Jane Foster walked in. She stood 7 feet tall, her white uniform gleaming even in the dim light. Behind her came Commander Stone and Intelligence Officer Wells. "Impossible," Vor whispered. "Humanity was destroyed. Earth was sterilized." "You failed," Foster said simply. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "We survived. We evolved. We returned." Around the chamber, hidden quantum generators activated. Suddenly, every council member could see the truth. 10,000 human ships surrounding their capital world, their perfect stealth fields disabled for the first time. "The attacks," a council member gasped. "That was you." "A demonstration," Stone answered. "We could have destroyed every military installation in council space in a single hour. Instead, we chose to show restraint." Wells stepped forward, activating a different hologram. It showed the Council's current defense network, their ship positions, their secret bases, everything. "Your technology is primitive," she said. "Your defenses are worthless. Your secrets are known." The Council members looked at each other in growing horror. Some reached for emergency beacons or weapons, only to find them non-functional. "We are not here for genocide," Foster announced. "We are better than that. Better than you were." She walked to the center of the chamber, her steps echoing in the silence. "We are here for justice." Suddenly, communication channels across the galaxy opened. Every citizen of every council world could see and hear what was happening in the chamber. The truth of Earth's destruction, hidden for so long, was revealed to all. "Your peoples deserve to know what their leaders did," Foster continued. "How you murdered billions out of fear and jealousy. How you buried the truth for 500,000 years. On a dozen council worlds, riots had already begun. The people had lived with the council's corruption and arrogance for too long. This revelation was the final spark. "The council is hereby dissolved," Foster declared. "Your military forces are already contained. Your weapons have been neutralized. Your power is ended." Several council members rose to object, but their voices died as more holograms appeared, showing human ships in position over every major council world. The message was clear: resistance was pointless. "But we offer a choice," Foster said, her voice softening slightly. "Help us build something better. A new alliance based on truth and justice rather than fear and power. Those who agree will be welcomed as equals. Those who refuse..." She didn't need to finish the threat. The council members looked at the display of human ships again, understanding at last just how completely they had been outmaneuvered. One by one, younger council members began to stand. They walked away from their elders, crossing the chamber to stand with the humans. They had seen enough of the old way. 500,000 years ago, you chose fear over friendship, Foster said. Today, we choose justice over vengeance. The galaxy will be better for it. Outside the chamber, the artificial suns began to brighten again. A new day was dawning, and nothing would ever be the same. Commander Stone stood on the bridge of the Terran Dawn, watching a holographic display of events unfolding across council space. Change was sweeping through the galaxy like a wildfire. Some worlds had thrown out their corrupt leaders within hours of learning the truth. Others teetered on the edge of civil war. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we're detecting unauthorized weapons charging on the Proxima colony. The hardline faction is making their move." Stone's jaw tightened. Not everyone in humanity's fleet agreed with the policy of mercy. A small group, led by Captain Drake of the warship Vengeance, believed they should do to the Council what had been done to Earth. "Show me," Stone ordered. The display shifted, showing the Vengeance, and 3 other ships moving into firing position above a major council world. Their weapon systems were powering up, preparing to unleash destruction on the billions below. "Open a channel to Captain Drake," Stone commanded. The captain's face appeared on screen, his expression hard with centuries of inherited hate. "Don't try to stop us, Commander," Drake said before Stone could speak. "They deserve everything they're about to get. For Earth, for our ancestors." Stone's voice remained calm. "Our ancestors didn't survive so we could become mass murderers. Drake, stand down. They're not even human. They're the descendants of monsters." "They're innocent civilians," Stone replied. "Look at your sensors. Look at the children down there. Would killing them make us better than those who tried to destroy Earth?" On the planet below, people watched the human ships with terror. They had just learned how their ancestors had betrayed Earth. Many expected revenge. Instead, they saw 2 human ships facing each other, one group protecting them from their own kind. "Admiral Foster sends her orders," Stone continued. "Stand down now, or we will stop you." Drake's laugh was bitter. "You can't fire on your own people. Not for them. Watch me." Stone nodded to his tactical officer. Instantly, quantum fields surrounded Drake's ships, neutralizing their weapons and drive systems. The would-be destroyers hung helpless in space. "Security teams are ready to board," Wells reported from her station. She had returned to the fleet after the Council's dissolution. "We can have them in custody in 5 minutes." Stone nodded. "Do it, and make sure the planet below sees everything. Let them understand that we won't allow anyone, even our own people, to commit genocide." As security shuttles approached the disabled ships, Stone received another alert. A Council refugee fleet was approaching human space, seeking asylum. They were families of Council members who had opposed the corruption but been silenced. Now they sought protection from the very people their government had once tried to destroy. "Let them through," Stone ordered. "Assign them temporary quarters on New Terra. Show them every courtesy." His crew looked at him with pride. This was why they followed Stone. He understood that true strength lay not in destruction, but in the power to protect. Hours later, Stone stood in a holding cell, facing Drake. The captain sat slumped, his plans for revenge thwarted. "You don't understand," Drake said quietly. "They took everything from us." "No," Stone replied. "They took Earth, but our humanity, our moral compass, our ability to show mercy, those things they could never take. That's why we're better than they were." He turned to leave, then paused. "Tomorrow, we begin the restoration of Earth. You'll watch from your cell as we rebuild what they destroyed. That's true victory, Drake. Not more death, more life." As Stone walked back to the bridge, reports continued to flood in. More Council worlds were pledging allegiance to the new alliance. Former enemies were becoming allies. Ancient wounds were beginning to heal. Humanity had returned not as destroyers, but as guardians. Not as conquerors, but as leaders. They had faced the ultimate test, the power to take revenge, and chosen a better path. The real victory wasn't in making the Council kneel. It was in showing them, and themselves, that humanity had grown beyond the need for vengeance. The blue marble of Earth hung in space, its surface no longer scared and gray. After 6 months of intensive terraforming, oceans once again covered the ancient world. White clouds swirled across its atmosphere, and patches of green had begun to appear on the continents. Commander Stone stood on the observation deck of the new Alliance headquarters, built in orbit around the reborn Earth. Below him, ships from 100 worlds moved in orderly patterns, carrying supplies and personnel. Some belonged to former Council races, others to human fleets. All worked together now. Beautiful, isn't it? Admiral Foster stepped onto the deck, her white uniform decorated with the new symbol of the Alliance, a phoenix rising from Earth's ashes. "Our ancestors would be proud," Stone replied, "not just of Earth's restoration, but of what we've built here." The latest reports showed the changes sweeping through the galaxy. The old council's corruption had been cleaned out, replaced by a system of true democracy. Every world, whether human or alien, had an equal voice. Advanced human technology was being shared, lifting up worlds that had been kept purposely backward by the old regime. "The ceremony begins in an hour," Foster reminded him. "Are you ready?" Stone nodded. Today marked the official founding of the new Galactic Alliance. Representatives from every world would gather to sign the charter, built on principles of truth, justice, and mutual protection. In the great assembly hall, thousands gathered. Former council races sat beside human delegates. Many had become close friends, finding more in common with each other than they had ever expected. The old head councilor's grandson, now a leading voice for reform, approached the podium. 500,000 years ago, my ancestors committed an unforgivable crime, he began. They chose fear over friendship, destruction over cooperation. Today, we finally make it right. One by one, representatives came forward to sign the charter. Each signing was met with applause from the gathered crowd. Ancient enemies shook hands. Old hatreds began to fade. Stone's communicator beeped softly, a message from the surface restoration team. The first trees had taken root in Earth's soil. Life was returning to the planet far faster than expected. "Commander Stone," Foster called from the podium, "would you do us the honor?" Stone walked forward. As the commander who had stopped the hardliners from seeking revenge, he had become a symbol of humanity's growth. The hall fell silent as he reached the podium. 500,000 years ago, he began, humanity fled to the stars, carrying with them a burden of pain and loss. Today, we return not seeking revenge, but offering hope. We could have destroyed. Instead, we chose to rebuild. We could have conquered. Instead, we chose to lead. He pressed his hand to the charter's biometric scanner, adding his signature to the document. Let this be remembered as the day when justice triumphed over vengeance, when wisdom overcame fear, when the future became more important than the past. The assembly erupted in cheers. On screens throughout the galaxy, billions watched and celebrated. A new age had begun. Later that evening, Stone took a shuttle down to Earth's surface. He stepped out onto real Earth soil for the first time, breathing air that smelled of new growth and possibility. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors no human had seen on Earth for 500,000 years. A small group of children played nearby, a mix of human and alien young, laughing together as they explored this ancient world made new. They were the future now, untainted by old hatreds, ready to build something better than either the Council or the old Earth had ever known. Stone picked up a handful of Earth's soil, letting it run through his fingers. "We remembered," he whispered, echoing the words of Admiral Reed from so long ago. "We returned, but we did more than that. We grew. We learned. We made things right." The sun dipped below the horizon, the first sunset on a restored Earth. Humanity had come home, not to dwell in the past, but to build a future worthy of all they had become.